Welcome back, everyone. Ready for another deep dive?
Always ready to dive in.
Well, today's dive is a little different, kind of unique, I'd say.
Oh, so.
Well, we're looking at this, well, it's a single piece of writing, really, but it's just got this interesting take on life, really.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Lay it on me.
So it uses this cooking analogy, and, well, it's not really about recipes or, techniques,
Interesting. So not a typical food blog kind of thing?
Not even close. It's all about, get this, stirring, mixing things together. Uses it as a metaphor for pretty much everything. Challenges, relationships, even faith and personal growth.
Wow, stirring. That's pretty creative.
Right. So I thought it'd be fun to, dig into this analogy, see what we can stir up.
I love it. Let's get mixing.
All right. So the core of this piece is all about this idea that just like, making dumplings, life requires us to put in some effort and mix things up a bit.
That makes sense. I mean, you can't just throw a bunch of ingredients in a bowl and expect a delicious meal, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the author, they use this example of making dumplings specifically. They describe how, each ingredient, like the pork, the cabbage, the spices, they all have their own, distinct flavors.
Right, and each one is important in its own way.
Totally. But it's only when they're, carefully mixed together that they create something truly delicious.
Something more than just the sum of its parts.
Exactly. And the author points out how this is mirrored in our own lives. How we got to blend different parts of ourselves, our experiences to really create something meaningful.
It's like that old saying, variety is the spice of life, but taken to a whole new level.
Totally. And what I find interesting is that the author goes beyond just cooking. They apply this whole mixing metaphor to everything. Child rearing, pursuing dreams, even relationships.
Wow, so it's really a universal concept.
Yeah, and there's this one anecdote. It's about this Korean honey citron tea.
Oh, I love honey citron tea.
Right, me too. But anyway, the author talks about how, at first glance, this tea looks perfectly blended, like this beautiful golden liquid.
Yeah, it's so visually appealing.
I know. But then, the sweetness, it settles at the bottom, and you realize it's not actually as balanced as it seemed.
Oh, that's a great point. It's like a hidden imbalance.
Exactly. And the author uses this to illustrate how sometimes in our lives, we might think things are mixed well.
Right. We might think everything is fine on the surface.
Yeah, but there might be underlying issues that we're ignoring or avoiding.
It's like sweeping things under the rug, thinking they'll just magically disappear.
Totally. And the author's point is that, just like with that honey citron tea, eventually those imbalances, they'll become apparent.
So what's the solution? How do we really stir things up and create that balance?
Well, that's where things get really interesting. The author brings in, faith. They see faith, specifically faith in Jesus, as kind of this ultimate helping hand in the mixing process.
Okay, so it's like we need something more than just our own effort to truly blend things well.
That's what the author seems to be saying. And they use this really powerful image of Jesus's hand.
His hands.
Yeah, the ones marked by the crucifixion, They say those scars symbolize his willingness to engage with the messy parts of life.
The parts we might want to avoid or ignore.
Exactly. And it's not about just accepting things passively. It's about, working with someone bigger than ourselves to bring about good.
So it's a partnership, not a surrender.
Right. It's acknowledging that we don't have all the answers, that we need help sometimes.
Especially when it comes to creating that harmony we all crave.
Exactly. And this whole idea, it's kind of we're all these individual ingredients, right?
Yes.
Each with our own unique flavors and quirks.
Some sweet, some sour, some spicy.
I love that. And faith, or maybe just belief in something bigger than ourselves, it acts as this binding agent, this gentle hand that helps us blend and create something truly extraordinary.
It's a beautiful image. It makes me think about what ingredients I might be resisting in my own life.
Me too. What would it look like to really embrace all those parts of ourselves, even the ones that seem bitter or, incompatible?
And to trust that they can all contribute to something beautiful in the end.
This has been such a thought-provoking dive. I think it reminds us that life, just like cooking, it's this constant process of mixing and blending.
And that we shouldn't be afraid to get our hands dirty, to stir things up a bit.
Exactly. It takes effort, it takes patience, and maybe even a little faith that even when things seem messy, there's a greater purpose at work.
Something to chew on as we continue to mix our own lives.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Thanks for diving in with me.
Always a pleasure. Until next time.
See ya.